ensuring informing the negotiation and the processes currently ongoing. This week, our conversations are really now going to be looking inwardly in terms of any intelligence that we can share with each other, in terms of what's happening in the Zoom corridors and the New York corridors around the negotiation. But we'll also be sharing a little bit about the Africa CSW convening that Femnet, together with members of the NGO CSW Africa, were participating and convening in Nairobi. But allow me then now just to hand this over to our session moderator, Lois. Lois, if you can hear me, take it away.
Hello, good morning, Rachel, and to everybody on the call.
Hello, Lois, we hear you.
Okay, so I want to use this opportunity to welcome everyone to CSW Africa Caucus meeting. This is a space where I think Rachel has reiterated it. This is a space where we as Africa women could review all the happenings around CSW, what our position is. We are glad to inform you that last week, Africa women convened in Nairobi, and then were able to, have a space to go through the CSW event, come up with their own position paper, which have been reviewed, and we will use this opportunity to share with everyone here. So we use this opportunity to share with everyone here so that we can be able to come up with a finalized agenda on the next steps on what we seem to have. So this morning's event is purely to welcome, to get the Africa women to be able to discuss specific issues concerning the theme for this year, which is on climate change, disaster management, and then resolution. Thank you very much.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Lois. Thank you for that update. I just wanted to start us off and take just a few minutes just to share a little bit about the African CSW convening. This is a convening that we held on the 14th to the 17th of March. And I must say that the Africa CSW convening was really a culmination of the persistent agitation and reflection of a lot of women's rights and feminist networks as we collectively reflected around this space we call the CSW. Being able to say, how can we be able to participate? How can we be able to be position ourselves to influence and to contribute, not just at the tail end, but also from the beginning, during CSW, and even way after. And so every year, as we have continued to follow, we've continued to say, how do we make CSW meaningful for the world's women and girls in all their diversity? We know that there are challenges a lot of us persistently face, even way before COVID, whether we're talking about the resources, the limited resources to be able to travel to New York for CSW, or we're talking about visa restrictions, whether we're talking about our voices being muted, and sometimes appearing like our voices are just to tick a CSOs who are present, kind of a tick the box. And so we started asking ourselves, are we even being heard? Are we even present? And when we're present, who is listening? And what we're saying, is it even counting? Is it shifting when things are happening and every year, year in, year out? We know that every year there's a priority theme and a discussion, there's a review theme. And these are themes that are very close to the work that we do in our communities, in our countries, even in our collective journey towards shifting narratives, towards co-creating this just, sustainable and inclusive world that we imagine and keep reimagining, a world that is free from violence and oppression and discrimination. We know COVID-19 made even matters worse in terms of representation and participation of all the world's women into this critical space like the CSW. And we feel like it's time for the UN women to admit that it's time for a system change. It's time for us to do things differently, because 66 years later, we need to really say CSW needs to be serving a majority, not a minority of the world's women and girls in all their diversity. So this thinking, these reflections, these very candid reflections saw us come together, 60 activists, feminists, advocates, in all our diversity, drawn from 18 African countries. And together we started co-creating our own space, setting our own agenda. Yes, having our eye and following some of the events, a few of those events at CSW, but being able to look in and say, things have to be done differently. And so we'll be sharing some of the conversations, some of the experiences from the Africa CSW in the chat briefly. We'll be sharing the links to how we've captured those experiences and conversations at the Africa CSW. I know Buki is also connected and will be sharing with us a little bit about the Nairobi Declaration and some of the demands that is coming from Africa CSW. But allow me, even as I conclude, to say, like the World Conferences on Women of the 80s and the 90s, when we had, women convening in Mexico in 1975, or Copenhagen in 1980, or Nairobi 1985, or Beijing, this Africa CSW is a defining moment. It's another defining moment because we gather to reimagine and to re-strategize what CSW for all world's women and girls looks like. And especially once we start hosting it and owning it within the different regions of the world. You feel free to check out the Africa Disrupt CSW66 conversations for a lot more conversations in terms of even the theme for CSW66, which is very close to African women and girls in all their diversity. Allow me to stop here and return it back to you, Lois. Thank you. I see you're still muted, Lois.
Okay, so Rachel, we thank you very much for this overview on what has already happened in Nairobi and then what we hope to achieve at this meeting. Thank you so much. So we will go on to the discussion on the declaration, the Nairobi Declaration, which will be done by Rachel, who is leading? Sorry, my agenda has, hello?
Buki.
Hello? Bonki.
Hello.
Yeah, so our sister Bonki will be taking us through the key takeaways that had been couched in our Nairobi Declaration for us all to be able to agree to it and then finalize it. So Bonki, can you take over and then take us through briefly what the provisions in that declaration says? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lois, and thank you so much, Rachel. Good afternoon, everyone, and great to be with you all. And it was so amazing to be in Nairobi with all the amazing women. And thank you also to all who joined virtually. It was definitely an inspiring space and definitely woke a lot of us up. I really want to say a big thank you to all the women who worked on the declaration. I don't have the list of names here, but I really do want to say thank you for all of the work and the effort that you put into it. And I think once you all get a chance to see it, you would definitely sign on to it. And Rachel, I don't know if the plan is to share the documents with everyone, but just to say that, you know, we started off by really, in the declaration, by really talking about, you know, what the Commission for the Status of Women is. It's being held in New York every year, and the fact that African women and girls are often not given visas or are not able to meaningfully engage in the space because of the shrinking space that is created, especially with the use of COVID regulations. And we know that the voices of African women are often overlooked, even when we know we have the technical expertise, even when we have the knowledge. Sometimes age has been used to refuse visas in the past. And so, you know, learning from COVID, Africa CSW was a first of its kind opportunity to be able to influence and to be able to start conversations towards COP, and wanting to make sure that it was more of an inclusive space that we even see in New York in many ways, and to be able to recognize the really critical issues. So, you know, some of the things that we talked about in terms of demanding in the declaration is that we want to be able to convene Africa CSW annually. We want it to be a bold, a brave, a disruptive and inclusive space for all, which includes women, girls, non-binary persons, differently abled persons. We hope it inspires similar movements in other parts of the world. We want to ensure that the conversations that are happening at CSW center the decolonization agenda, especially in climate justice, gender equality, and the social justice struggle. We do not want the pretense that the legacies of colonialism and racist and sexist ideologies do not continue. We are seeing the efforts of neocolonialism in trade, in aid, in international financial institutions, and we want that to be recognized and to be part of the analysis to be able to define the solutions. We want to continue to advance intersectional approaches, not just by lip service, but we want it to be shown in our social and economic and political struggle, because we're pushing for the full liberation of all African women, girls, non-binary persons, and who are also differently abled. And we want the recognition that we do not live single issue lives. So we cannot separate gender justice from climate justice, from reproductive justice, from education, from health. All of these things are connected and are linked. We want, with continued in the Commission of the Status of Women, we want to continue to take up space as who we are on the continent, in the diaspora. We want to be able to tell our stories and experiences, and not just be storytellers, but to also share the technical knowledge that we have, and to ensure that the decisions that are made draw inspiration from our realities. We want collaborations at all levels, you know, from all of our leaders within networks, feminist networks, civil society, international development, and the private sector. And we know that when we talk about the private sector, we understand how exploitative that can be, but knowing that we want it to be able to be focused on using collaborations with the different entities to be able to push the right agenda. We want to advocate for EcoStock and CSW to adopt a similar approach. So we're rotating the venue for CSW instead of it only being in New York. We want the necessary contributions and leadership of African women, girls, non-binary and differently abled persons in all of their diversity to be recognized. You know, one of the things Crystal said during that, dreaming is a political tool. So we want to continue to be able to dream and reimagine in response to this climate crisis. We want to be able to boldly challenge systems and structures of oppression, such as patriarchy, capitalism, neocolonialism, neoliberalism, imperialism, and other isms that seeks to advance false solutions that we hear through geoengineering, through nature-based solutions that are really not rooted in nature, that destroy indigenous ecosystems. So we want to solve the climate crisis, but we want it to be the way we imagined and dreamed. We want to value, center, and leverage the data, the stories, contribution, technical expertise, and knowledge systems of generations of African women, girls, non-binary, differently abled persons in research, advocacy, and policy. So we don't want research only limited to, to 15 to the 49-year-olds. We want it to cover girls below 15. We want it to cover women above 49. We don't want to just be reduced to our reproductive systems. We want the advocacy for social transformation needed for gender equality to be at the center of these solutions. And we want that to continue to be part of our demands. We do recognize that we cannot realize equality, climate justice, social and economic transformation if it is not funded. And so we want to see increased resourcing, and we want to see this through human rights and gender responsive budgeting. We want to see progressive taxation, and we want to continue to see strong investment in public services and also public infrastructure, because we are seeing reduction in investments in public services. We are seeing the increase in public-private partnerships, which is often to the detriment of the social services provision, especially around education and health, water, agriculture, extension services, and in different sectors as well. So it's really critical for that to be recognized. We also want to make sure that there is a recognition that African women, girls, non-binary persons, differently abled persons are disproportionately affected by climate change. Even though we are not the biggest polluters, and our communities are not the biggest polluters, but yet we bear the burden and the brunt of climate crisis. And so knowing what is happening, coupled now with the pandemic, coupled with economic injustice, coupled with the gendered effect, which make it hard for many of us to live and thrive and live dignified lives. We want to see the conversation around climate change and action as CSW being led by those who are being most impacted, by those who are being disproportionately impacted. We do not want their voices to keep being invisible. And last but not least, we demand accountability from our national governments in the capitals and in the permanent mission. So those who go on our behalf. They reduced the number to 6, and our governments did not push back. Some governments did not include civil society, some did. But we want to continue to demand accountability from our national government to recognize the role of movements, of civil society, of women and girls, differently abled persons, gender non-binary persons, in particular, those who are from key populations. We want to ensure that they are not forgotten, their issues are actually not overlooked and marginalized. So those were the demands that we came up with in the Nairobi Declaration, and we hope everyone can continue to contribute to that. So thank you, everyone. Handing back over to you, Lois.
Hello. Thank you, Bunky, for taking us through the provisions in the African CSW66 declaration. And you were very snappy, but the points were out. And I hope all of us followed keenly so that when it gets to the negotiation bit, we'll be able to add our voices to it. Now, we will want to invite our sister Maureen Oliaro to be able to share any updates from New York, any sticky issues that we as African women can deliberate on. So can we use this opportunity to engage Maureen on updates from New York on CSW66 and then emerging issues? Thank you very much.
Morning, everyone. I'm not going to put on my video. Yes, good morning from very early New York. It's around 7:20 a.m. here. For my presentation or my updates, I'm going to be joined by my colleague Jill Anami. So we decided to split it into two so that we share what is happening in terms of the negotiations, but just also generally our observations in terms of civil society participation, especially African women and girls' participation in CSW in terms of, physical attendance in New York. So I'll just start by giving a an update of where the negotiations have reached. As of last night, there were still discussions on the preambular paragraphs, but these were almost finalized. So there's an indication that possibly the negotiations could be finished by end of day today. They are continuing again, I think, from 10 a.m. in the morning. Generally, and this is feedback that we have received from various civil society that are here in New York, there seems to be a lack of aspiration in terms of there's a feeling that member states are really just working towards, the lowest common denominator. So, which is quite disappointing because, with the CSW having a technical theme such as climate change, I think for all of us, our aspiration was that, we would get to have a lot of language in support of women and girls, and because this was lacking in Glasgow and Paris, but it seems that this may not really be what the final outcome document will look like. But wait and see. Like I said, the negotiations are not yet finished. There's also just an acknowledgement around a very strong and growing anti-gender movement within the space, and a really big push for, even in terms of language, the use of the word gender only in the context of gender equality and nothing else. And a lot of that is evident in terms of the pushback from some of the member states when the language was being negotiated. That being said, we received some information that there is a common, commonality in terms of approach when it comes to the Bureau. South Africa, Argentina, Korea, Germany, Latvia. So they're all, they don't have a lot of, how do I put it? It was said that they're working well together, and there are no, they all seem to be on the same page in terms of understanding the assignment that, CSW is supposed to be looking at promotion of gender equality and women empowerment. And so there is need to make sure that even though the topic, the theme is technical around climate change, they should not lose focus of the fact that, the whole existence of CSW is around GEWE. Maybe also just to update that the methods of work has been concluded, and there's the final version is out. I think it's already been circulated in most of the groups that Femnet is in. In terms of the sticky issues with the agreed conclusions, so of course a lot of opposition, including from the Africa group, on language around diversity. So specifically, I think paragraphs that had language on multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination. This has been opposed. There's also a lot of contention around loss and damage. And I know specifically this is captured in quite a lot of detail in our Africa position paper. But this is being resisted, and predominantly by progressive countries who have otherwise been allies when it comes to ensuring there's progressive language in the text. But when it comes to loss and damage, there's pushback from these countries. So I think this is something to really work on and be ready as African women and girls to explore avenues to advocate, especially as we head into COP27, because we know specifically the push from civil society is, among other things, for there to be a financing facility for loss and damage. And we know that loss and damage, of course, disproportionately affects us in the global south. So something to keep an eye out for. Then also another sticky issue is a reference to Generation Equality Forum, which according to comments from the room is that it's been found to be selective because it's viewed by some as a country initiative, but there's also maybe concern around the fact that then it brings in language of SRHR and bodily autonomy, since this is an action coalition within the Generation Equality Forum. So there's been push to replace that with more non-political or language around maybe multi-stakeholder forums instead. So that is what I think will finally end up in the agreed conclusions, and not specific referencing to Generation Equality Forum. There was also some push around the term gender responsive with the usual countries pushing for more watered down language around gender sensitive or just gender equality. And then also women human rights defenders. There was a lot of pushback from countries, I think including Africa Group, arguing that there was no need to subdivide human right defenders into women human right defenders. At this point, maybe I'll invite my colleague Jill to also talk about other general observations that we've made in terms of CSW New York. Jill?
Thank you so much, Maureen. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So together with what Maureen has shared on the more technical aspect of CSW, I'm going to focus observations made in regard to access and logistics generally. And this also touches to what Buki mentioned earlier. And we're looking at how there's a very few representation of CSWs in Africa at this moment in New York. And this is also in virtual, and this is also visible in virtual groupings, including WhatsApp groups that are strategizing or are having constant communications in regard to influencing language in the documents. We've also noted that youth engagement and representation is very low across the board, and especially, of course, and highly predominantly from Africa, where not many youth are represented in these spaces, both virtually and even physically. Access to the UN building has been extremely restrictive, and even with the number of CSOs that are here, it's very restrictive. There are very few CSOs here, and even some who are here, and I'm talking of even high-level CSOs of women's rights organizations who have no access to the building. And this means that they're not able to engage or follow up with the negotiations and discussions and strategies around the documents. Also, something that we've noted is that representation of CSOs in government delegation is also very little in most African countries. I think the highest, and I stand corrected, is Malawi, that has more CSO representation in the government delegation compared to other African countries that are present here. So that is something that we really need to work on in terms of working with our governments and holding them accountable in terms of CSO representation at that space, and even representation of youth delegates in the overall government delegations as well. And yes, I think those are some of the key issues in regard to logistics. And of course, we are still looking at access to getting visas, where even we have we know members who were denied visas to come to the States, yet they were part of government delegation. So there's still a lot of restrictiveness when it comes to that. And of course, even funding. So as African women rights organizations, I think it's up to us to really, we have a lot of work to do in regard to our physical presence in CSW, and hopefully, and we hope that moving forward next year, it will be better, and even in other key forums that are coming in the course of the year, and I hope our representation will be better. Thank you. Over to you, Rachel and Lois, thanks.
Thank you so much, Jill and Maureen, for sharing with us the pending issues that are still facing African women in their bid to be part of these global discussions on advancing gender equality. I'm so thankful to the two of you for this elaborate presentation, and still the issues are still the same. It still boils back to access, participation, resources, and then whether our voice, the magnitude of our voice, whether we are being heard, the issues that we put across, are they being considered? Are any revisions being made? Are any strides being made? So I'm happy that we've come up with this agenda where we are also thinking of having our own space where we can meet to deliberate on our own specific issues and come up with our own specific position paper in advancing gender equality. Thank you very much. I want to, where we've gotten now is more on the question and answers. We want to share, open the floor for members who are present to be able to also share their concerns on all that we've been having this morning on our declaration, the specific one from Africa. We also want to share and look at what Maureen and Jill have presented on the pushbacks that denies us that ability to participate and to have our voices heard. So I will not want to talk so much. We open the floor to have hear from participants who have joined us on Zoom. Thank you.
Yes. Hello, this is Debbie. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, thank you, Lois. Thank you very much to all the speakers. The presentations were really great. I congratulate the teams that have been working behind the scenes. And I really congratulate us on just reaching this very, very historic a milestone in our lives as African women. I really celebrate the fact that we brought CSW to Africa. So congratulations to all the women, congratulations, Femnet. And now going forward, I recommend that as we craft this CSW Africa space, we really invest in capacitating ourselves and others to have a grassroots, to build a grassroots African CSW movement. I think we can learn from the mistakes we've been making as we plan for the CSWs at the UN level, where we pay a lot of attention to going to New York and forget that the work really starts on the ground within the countries, building relationships with the governments and all that kind of thing. So learning from those mistakes, I would just recommend that we invest really heavily in ensuring that each country has a grassroots movement. Women within the countries are aware, first of all, of the CSW, the processes, the themes, and we have a situation where our next Nairobi Declaration 2023, our position papers at the Africa level, but at the country level, are all informed by women on the ground, because there's a lot of ignorance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are still, there are many women's rights organizations who are not still part of this process, have very little knowledge about the processes. And so we still have a lot of work to reach out to ensure that everyone is part of this process. Okay, so I would want to invite my sister, Reverend Sister Rachel to also share her view.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm finding the conversation really inspiring because I think I'm representing the Anglican Church. I'm based in Cape Town. We need to put together the gender issues and the climate issues, and Africa is the most impacted. But I wanted to raise the issue of the role of faith communities. In Africa, as we know, unlike the European countries, the faith communities are so powerful, and women are making up the bulk of the faith communities. And we know that the backbone of the church, the backbone of the mosques is women, and women are empowered. Women are leaders of the mothers' unions. Women are leaders in the churches. How do we bring the voice of the women faith to this debate? Because faith communities offer two things. They offer reach, going into the smallest village, into the biggest town, and they also offer values. And we know that the environmental challenges that we face, apart from climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution, are spiritual ones. It is greed, it is apathy. So we need a spiritual transformation in order to change the way that we see the world. So I would love to see how the CSW Africa can really embrace the role of women, people of faith, and bring that whole thing into the debate. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Reverend Sister. We thank you for drawing our attention that our faith, the church, environment and the religious organizations have been left out. Okay, so we need to also find ways to consciously engage them, and so they will be part of the process. I will invite my sister from Ghana, Ali Masatigo, to also come with your submission.
Yeah, thank you very much. And then I just want to say very good work done by the team at the background, and the presenters have been very excellent in terms of the issues that have been raised and how practical they are. I just want to comment and say that it's important that as women, we really look at funding and building capacity of our rural base. The rural base are from the majority of the women, and the climate change affect them more in terms of livelihoods. Yesterday, I just had a program for women and climate change, and I realized the mass knowledge of adaptation strategies that our rural women are having, and nobody is talking about it. They don't have platform to share. And I'm thinking that as women rights organizations with very limited funding, one of the recommendations probably we should be putting across is raising more funds for women rights organizations, especially women-led, to be able to target very well the rural communities, consolidate all the good gains that have happened there, and to use that to be able to scale up for this issue of climate change. As we do that, and then we look at climate change and gender, then we'll be able to say that we'll have a package to present at any level and say that when women are being put at the center of decision making, this is what they can offer, because they are the most hurt when it comes to climate change. And they are also those that have been vulnerable as far as inequalities of social services are concerned, inequality of income, inequality for access to every other thing are concerned, more so even gender sexual-based violence. So we will really need them to be at the center of discussion when it comes to climate change. But it's only possible if we're able to put together and consolidate all the positive impacts that women are making at the various communities, all the positive results that they are showing, and the abilities for them to be able to scale up and show the results. For me, that is a recommendation I would like us to really put on. I know it is there, but we can hammer that and make it more evident, with evidence on the ground that it is possible for women to be at the center of climate change discussion, women and girls for that matter. So that's just my input coming from Ghana. My organization is Savannah Women Integrated Development Agencies. We are located in northern part of Ghana. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your submission. I'll be going to the chat box very soon so that I can also read some of our comments. But I will want to invite Reverend Dr. Benka to also share with us her position. Then we'll go to Dr. Offlon. Okay. So the two, then we go to the chat box.
Yeah, thank you very
So
much.
you can also share your concerns by the chat box.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lois, and hello to all my sisters on this platform this morning. My comments are, I have a few comments, and I want to first of all congratulate Feminine and the team that initiated the CSW Africa process this year by convening Nairobi, Kenya. And I remember also that Feminine itself was born out of a meeting in Nairobi, Kenya when the UN had the Women Conference in 1985, when great women of Africa decided that they have to do something for African women. And today we have Feminine that is leading so many processes in Africa. So I just wanted to say that I applaud the initiative, but I also want to add that I want to also suggest that what we have started this year might be something that we will maintain and make sure that is inclusive to the point that everybody, 60 gallant women made there, many people join virtually, but I'm sure, as Debbie also has said earlier, we had to start a planning ahead of time. So many, the stories that the report from the CSW is not very encouraging. And even as I listened to Maureen and my other sister, I was asking myself, so this wonderful statement that was issued from Nairobi, how did they buy into this in all this process in New York? But I would say that, well, this is a great beginning. Let's start early. Let's make sure that the voices, the people that we are fighting for, their voices are captured, and we prepare ahead of time and make sure that next year it will not be even 60. Next year it will be more than that, and our voices will be captured, and we'll be able to lobby even government delegations to know that this is what is happening. So by the time we issue our statement, we already have their buy-in, and then that can also make impact on whatever they do in New York. So that is I'm Charity Binka from Ghana. And for many years, I was the board member of Femnet. And I also run an organization called Women, Media and Change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Charity Binka, for this excellent presentation. And also, I'm encouraging us to continue with what we started this year, that is having our own space so more people can participate. I'll invite Dr. Offlon to share her, then I'll go to the chat box. So please, anyone who wants to share some points can also put it in the chat box.
Thank you so much, my sister. Actually, the name is Dr. Ife. If you can't pronounce the surname, Dr. Ife is okay. Again, I represent Women in Development and Environment, Nigeria. I'm the main representative to the UN. Let me start by thanking all of you. In fact, I'm very, very proud of all of you, my sisters, for the work you guys are doing. When I look back to how we have struggled over the years, at the UN, under the code and everything. I remember clearly when the UN Women was created, and a good number of us were at the UN building till 8 p.m. And, we were all involved in so many campaigns, the GEAR campaign, the 50-50 campaign. And I, for one, I thought that after the creation of UN Women, that the status of women, particularly in Africa, will improve. But you and I know what is happening today, and it saddens me. And also, if you listen to the SG, that's the Secretary General, a few days, when he was talking to us and having a consultation, with us, he did mention that he is an ally, but that the situation is that, look at the G7, they are all male, the leaders are all male, and you see, I feel so sad that up till now, we are still struggling to have a space, on the table. So quickly, I just want to encourage you people that let's continue this struggle. I'm so happy, I'm so excited that we now have our own CSW Africa. But I want to plead, with us. Let's try as much as possible to work, bring in the AU, the African Union, the ECOWAS, the SADC, and East Africa Group, and let's even see how we can work, with these ones. Despite all the conventions and all the protocols and all the instruments, women still do not have control over their land. Women are being displaced because they are women. So, I'm just trying to, how do I say it, bring up the issues that we all are fully aware of. We're talking about climate change and, how, women have been treated and everything. There are so many critical issues in Africa. And my dear sisters, we just have to keep moving. I really stand behind all of you. Femnet, you guys have been great. Please continue. But like I said, let's see how we can work with the AU if it's possible, to work with them. It's good to have our statement, our stands, our asks, included in the resolutions. But after that, what happens? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ife. Thank you for the correction. Okay, and then also your interest for us to, be able to engage the regional organizations, AU, all of them, so that they can be able to, the agenda can reflect that they have gender in mind. In the chat box, as I promised, I will be going there. There are a few comments, and then somebody is asking us to refer so much to COP27, since that's the future for deeper collaboration. So we all know that this year we'll be going to COP27, and it's a space where we have further discussion on climate change. So if we can all follow those discussions and then be able to ensure that gender is mainstream there. We also, someone is also chairing Malawi for their prioritization in these recommendations. Also, people thank Maureen and Jill for the observation and their comments on the pushbacks that Africans face. We also have that Africa, we need to have one voice, and it should be clear heard and then deeper, And then we also asking that we should have more accountability and monitoring policies in our local countries, since it's very critical. And then we're also saying that Africa, Africa is very complex, and in the past, it's been like, we've always seen it as the USA, but when we come to Africa, there are many more countries, and so we shouldn't focus on a few. Each country in Africa needs to be considered with respect. These two caucus sessions in this Africa is enlightening, I think, and it's recommending that since we are many more countries, we need to have more. And then also about how we shouldn't forget that in empowering women, we shouldn't neglect the spiritual health, the spiritual aspect. And so, the comments are flowing in, and then we can keep coming. And so I want to go back to the comments, whether we have more. Oh, okay, our sister Charity, we want to also come back with another submission. Charity, do you want to make another submission?
Oh, no, I'm not making a submission.
Okay. So since we don't have any submission, I will want to call on Rachel if you have anything to say with respect to the concerns raised by African women, any reactions to them, and then, or any reaction from the key leadership of Feminet, and then any other women group on what our proposals mean, and then next steps.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Lois, and thank you to the wonderful additions and reflections that we are having. I think it's just to say, let's continue agitating. This is something that African women and also women from Asia and Latin America have been pushing in terms of making sure CSW is for us, about us, and with us present. And so it's just to say, how do we amplify these calls using our different platforms, reaching out to our ministries, the government delegation that has been to CSW, just continuing to agitate and reaching out even to UN. You know, Dr. Ife reminding us about the gear, the architecture of UN Women was really supposed to be grounded at the country level, at the regional level. And so the more reason we need to be going back to UN Women and holding them accountable and say, we want to be present, we want to feel these are decisions that are impacting our lives, you know, and so we must be present. We must be part of the co-creation of that agenda and to do the follow through. I also see a lot of us saying, you know, let it not just be the Africa CSW66. Let's also think about Africa CSW67 and 68 and 69. You know, how do we ensure that even as we are calling for the rotation, and I'm convicted that that rotation will happen, but even as we are calling for that rotation, how do we make sure that even that rotation will still be able to have other regions still meeting and connecting and contributing to that, you know, CSW where decisions are being made. And so thinking in terms of also what Debbie was reminding us in terms of grassroots movement, you know, having that groundswell at the community level, having an awareness where decisions are brokered and where they are made, you know, and their voices actually counting, women and girls in all our diversity. So I think just taking on those points and saying we have a few more minutes. Anyone else who would love to chime in, would love to contribute before we wind up. I see memory is also connected. You know, the women memory you also want to add in, or any other member of the NGO CSW Africa, anyone else, free just to share. This is our space. Africa Regional Caucus is our space.
Thanks, Rachel. So I just wanted to come in and also acknowledge the great work and everyone who has showed up today. But also I just wanted to emphasize that we have one of our board members, our vice chair from the diaspora, Caprice James, and maybe also invited to also share in terms of the role that women in the diaspora, women of African descent also, what role they are playing in terms of ensuring that issues within the UN space, especially the vicinity with New York, vicinity with Washington, their support that we need and how it's important for us to connect with the continent and the issues. So yeah, so that's what I just wanted maybe Caprice to invite you to just say a few words. But also just to acknowledge as well the NGO CSW Africa team working very closely with NGO CSW New York in terms of ensuring there's access, but also ensuring that, you know, there's that coordination. So coordination is very important. And one of the things that I want to say in terms of reflecting this year is much of the work is prior to the actual CSW. So we need to already plug in terms of just maybe understanding more how the process works in terms of inputting into the outcome document, ensuring that our member states, when they are required to make inputs, they're already making the inputs. And also at the regional level, at the Africa level, knowing that Africa negotiates as a group. So it's very important to know what the strong voices, the opposition, and how do we ensure that our delegations are also very well versed. So one of the things that we've noted is that I think we've also taken it for granted that our respective ministers and ministries also know the CSW mechanism, because they're always constantly changing. I don't know, but we've noted that in most countries, there isn't that sort of like capacity strengthening for them to actually understand how this system works. So I think it's something that we need to discuss together with UN Women and UN Commission, UNECA as well, to see is there a way we can ensure that even as the gender ministers, the technical committees are coming
to ADIS, to do the pre-CSW, they are also well vested in understanding how the process works, because usually they are just coming together for the statement. So maybe this is something that we need. And then I think lastly, it's if we can also be consistent. So beyond this, it would be great to get volunteers, NGO CSW team, the secretariat here at FemNet. We would really want to connect with you in terms of if you know, if you have access to your delegation. We just would want, imagine if we have all the 54, 55 African countries, and we know that we are going to contact so-and-so, and she's going to tell us whether their delegation that went to New York at civil society, and whether there will be debriefing, because we need to ensure we continue with the momentum for CSW and also link this together with the COP. So I think I'll stop there.
Thanks, Memory. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. First, I want to say just to the FemNet team, congratulations and a job well done over these last 2 weeks. It's always so hard with all the different time zones, and the team has been very engaged. I'll keep my comments brief. Yes, I am the new board vice chair for the diaspora, and being here in New York in the space, realizing the absence of our African sisters here, both for delegation, the CSOs, and even just in the virtual space. There's a lot of conversations that we have not been included in. And just for the diaspora itself, our job is to really ensure that we are advocating and uplifting the voices, especially because of the time zone. We're able to be here in that space for those that are at the middle of the night for them, with CSW being here in New York. What I would encourage everyone, especially with Africa CSW, what I've seen in the conversations here is everyone is paying attention. Also ensuring that when we're speaking about Africa, it is coming from those that, look like us. That's been one of the things, the conversation of, having the representation. I think Trish even mentioned it in her comments about, understanding more of Africa. She thought it was more reflective of the US and realized, no, it's more of the European Union. So really being able to use FemNet and use you all's voices to tell your story. I think so many are missing the work that you're doing because they don't see it. So you have to be more visible. You have to, use FemNet as an opportunity to share your stories in your local countries. And those are asking for the diaspora. The diaspora are those of us that do not live on the continent. I myself, I'm here in the US. I'm based in Maryland. So being able to, both doing the work here in the US, but also doing work in Africa. So those of us that are no longer on the continent are those of us that were displaced from the continent. So that is what the diaspora is. Someone asked that in the chat. But I just want to continue all to encourage you to stay engaged at your local levels. We can't leave this space this year and not stay connected. I think Debbie mentioned it, in her comments. We have to engage throughout the year, and we have to be prepared, and we have to be ready, and we have to ensure we have a plan to ensure that our voice is not missing from this space. It's very important of all the things that are going on with climate justice, with funding, with the rural areas. And so we have to have a voice because you all are the ones that know it and are living it. And if we must share that voice and not let others share that voice for us. So I just want to say that I wanted to keep my comments very brief, but again, it is not like one last thing for the diaspora, it's not like expats. No, I was born here in the US. And so for the diaspora, there are some Africans that have left Africa, but then you have African Americans, of course, that have been displaced because of slavery back in the day. So the diaspora started out of making sure that Blacks that were born in America can still have a connection to Africa. So that's the deep root of the Pan-African of the diaspora. So that's what that means. And I'll drop my email in the chat for anybody else who wants to have that conversation and understand our place here. But again, just everyone keep up the great work, but continue to share your voice and share your story. And to FemNet, you know, it's always great seeing the space that you all have, and you definitely have gained the attention of a lot with Africa Disrupt. There are so many articles that are being put out about it, and every meeting that we've gone into, everyone's asking if they didn't know before, now they know. So definitely keep up the great work. Back over to you, Rachel.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Caprice, for that brief. And thank you everyone for connecting. I see our moderator, Lois, has dropped off. I think she could be having connections problems. But then again, just to say a deep appreciation to all of us for connecting, for contributing to this conversation. And probably just to say, you know, agree with all what you're saying, that this is not ending here. CSW66 concludes tomorrow, but our work begins. Our work begins ahead of the next CSW. And so feel free to connect with us at FemNet. Feel free to connect with us with any members of the NGO CSW Africa. Probably I can ask NGO CSW Africa, feel free to drop in your email so that we can stay connected and we can stay planning, strategizing, reimagining, and really continue to disrupt spaces that are about us, but without us, that need to have us in those spaces. I really want to thank all of us, even as we come to the end of our Africa Regional Caucus session. Thank you. Feel free to turn on your video. I think it's something we love doing, and just wave to someone that you have seen on the list, and you know, just waving. And thank you to NGO CSW New York for facilitating us through this Zoom link, and also the previous conversation. Thank you. Keep tweeting, keep going to the hashtag Africa Disrupt CSW66.